Welcome to Sleeping Scientist. Test tube ZZZ. I'm truly glad you're here tonight. In a world that spins with noise and motion, you've chosen to rest. To lie still. To listen. So before we begin our gentle voyage into deep time, take a long, slow breath. Feel it move through you like a tide. Let your chest rise and fall like waves against a quiet shore. Close your eyes. Let the world blur. Let it melt. And in its place, let a new one rise, ancient, unknown, and waiting. We are not just going to learn. We are going to remember. Because somewhere in your bones, in the atoms that hum inside you, is a memory. A memory of fire, of stone, of water before it knew rivers, of winds before they had names. We're traveling not just backward in time but inward. To a world before humans, before cities, before even trees had reached toward the sun. A world that was warm, restless, alive in a way few today can imagine. This was Earth not as you know it but as it once dreamed itself into being. Chapter 1: The Breathing Earth. Imagine a planet, wrapped in silence. No birds, no voices, no footsteps. Only the steady, distant heartbeat of volcanic drums beneath stone blankets. The earth was young not in years, but in feeling. It groaned and stretched like someone slowly waking up after a long, dark sleep. Beneath thick layers of cooling rock, fire still churned. And sometimes, that fire rose. It broke through the skin of the world in glowing scars, volcanoes spilling skyward. They lit the horizon like candles in the mist, sending whispers of ash into a thick, ancient atmosphere. The air itself was different, dense, clinging, full of mystery. A shawl of vapor and gas wrapped tight around the globe, holding in warmth like breath trapped in cupped hands. There was no blue sky yet. No crisp air. Instead, the world glowed amber. Soft, golden, humid. As if everything were being born inside a great, planetary womb. And it was. Chapter 2: The First Murmurs of Life. Down near the water's shallow, still, half-formed life began to whisper. Not roars. Not cries. Just ripples. Tiny shapes moved like question marks. Slippery, small, soft-bodied, the first bold experiments of life. They didn't roar or rule or rise high into the air. They slid. They clung. They tried. And in their trying, they made way for everything to come. Imagine green. But not the green you know. A green of ferns uncoiling like fingers. Of mosses thick as blankets, spreading slow across stone. This was the world's first quiet garden. No flowers. No petals. No buzzing bees. Only ferns, horsetails, and soft, spongy ground. The earth wore a green hush and life tiptoed through it. Here moved the ancestors of the ancestors. Tiny lizard-like beings, tails trailing behind them, heads turning with curiosity. Eyes wide, hearts fast. Breathing a world that was both beautiful and brutal. This was the Triassic. The time of testing. Chapter 3, One World, Many Dreams. At that time, the world was still one land, Pangaea. A single supercontinent, like a jigsaw puzzle never yet broken apart. It stretched wide beneath a single sun, hugged by oceans that wandered without borders. Imagine it. No continents. No familiar coasts. Just one vast land, open, raw, waiting. The mountains had not yet risen. The deserts had not yet burned. The ice had not yet returned. It was a blank canvas. And life was the first brush stroke. Winds curled across the plains with no forests to catch them. Rain fell softly into shallow seas, steaming as it kissed the warm ground. Rivers formed and vanished in cycles. Lightning arced above cloud-thick skies. But no one watched. No one named it. Yet. Chapter 4, Fire Below, Sky Above. Inside the earth, the fire never slept. Deep beneath the green hush. Beneath roots and rivers. Lava still danced its slow, molten waltz. It was this restless warmth that kept the planet alive. Like blood beneath skin, the magma pulsed. And sometimes, that pulse broke through. Volcanoes sang their fiery songs. Ash-blanketed ferns. The skies turned gray, then red, then clear again. It was chaos. But in that chaos, life learned to adapt. To wait. To try again. Chapter 5, The Long Becoming. Every moment we move forward in time, the earth moves deeper into its own becoming. The tiny creatures of the Triassic began to change. Some grew longer tails. Some stronger jaws. Some stood taller, testing limbs against gravity. Their footsteps deepened the soil. They climbed trees not yet trees. They watched and were watched. One by one, they diverged. Species split. New shapes formed. And with each turn of the planet, the past fell away, and possibility rose. You could not have guessed what was coming. No one could. But the earth was preparing. In secret, in silence, it was dreaming dinosaurs. Chapter 6, Rest here a while. Let us pause here. In this early garden, where the air smells of stone and rain, and the ferns still glisten from the breath of volcanoes, you can hear them, can't you? The wind curling through leaves, the soft patter of ancient rain on moss, the crackle of cooling lava far away, and beneath it all, a feeling that something is coming, something big, something ancient and magnificent. It stirs beneath the ground, it shifts in the soil, but not yet. Tonight, we are still in the quiet, the hush before the first roar, the calm before the thunder-footed rise of giants. So rest now. Breathe with the earth. Feel your pulse slow, your muscles soften, and dream of green worlds untouched by time. But then came the fires. The earth cracked open, great volcanic rifts splitting through the land like thunder frozen in stone. Lava spilled in golden waves, slow and glowing, consuming everything in its path. The sky darkened, filled with ash and silence. Weeks passed under a cloud of dust and flame. Forests disappeared. So did many of the fragile creatures that had just begun to thrive. But not all. From the smoke and shadows emerged the early dinosaurs, small, swift, sharp-eyed survivors. They were quick, cautious, clever. Some skittered like featherless birds. Others stood upright, light-footed, and alert like shadows of the giants still to come. They learned to move carefully, to dodge danger, to find quiet corners where the fire could not reach. And with every heartbeat, the world changed just a little more. Their bones carried secrets light and hollow in just the right places. Their hearts beat slow and steady, like the ticking of a cosmic clock. The earth, though weary from fire, did not rest. It turned its face to the sun once more, and the flames began to sleep. Forests returned, cautiously, ferns pushing through the ash like green fingers reaching toward the light. Rain softened the scorched soil, and rivers, as if remembering, found their paths again. And so began the quiet climb of the dinosaurs. They spread across the earth gently, not in conquest, but in curiosity. One step at a time, one breath, one new kind. Some grew long and heavy, some light as wind. Teeth sharpened like moonlight on a blade, or dulled into grinding plates for leaves. Some wore beaks, some armor, some speed. Life began to play with shapes, experimenting like an artist brushing a new canvas. Millions of years later, we'd find their shadows fossilized in stone. Named with Latin syllables, touched with reverent fingertips. And wonder, How did such creatures ever walk this world? But here in their first hour the dinosaurs were still learning. Learning to breathe, to move, to grow into the strength written into their bones. They danced with the winds and shadows. They stretched into the world's rhythm. And the earth watched quietly. It had seen rise and fall before. But this time felt different. These beings were not just strong, they were many. Not just big but persistent. They listened to the soil, to the seasons, to the deep silent music beneath their feet. Night now came more gently. With stars that shimmered like beetle backs in velvet black. The moon sailed overhead in peace. And small dinosaur feet whispered through the forests, leaving prints that would one day become pages in stone. The fire had not ended life, it had carved space for it to begin again. And the earth, warm beneath its cooling crust, waited. For something was coming. Something tall. Something fierce. Something with teeth like knives and eyes like jewels. But not yet. For now, the world cradled its survivors. And let them dream. Imagine a forest where ferns grow taller than horses. Where dragonflies the size of dinner plates drift through thick, golden air. The earth had entered the Jurassic. The chaos had calmed. The great continent still held together. But subtle cracks whispered of change. New oceans hummed in the future's voice. The world began shaping itself like a sculptor smoothing warm clay. Gentle, patient, certain. The dinosaurs changed too. Some stretched long and low. Others rose tall and slow, like trees that walked. The sauropods, soft-footed giants, moved in herds like floating islands. Their tails swayed like banners in the breeze, and each footprint told a story in the mud. The earth around them pulsed with calm life. Distant volcanoes grumbled now and then. But most days glowed golden with sunlight dripping through ancient canopies. Rivers meandered. Lakes mirrored the skies. The air was sweet with moss and leaf and the quiet breath of stone. Above, the sky was not empty. Pterosaurs rode the wind with wings of stretched skin. Not quite birds, but learning. Gliding, dipping, silent as they swept over valleys. Some were no bigger than a sparrow. Others, wide as gliders. They shared the sky with insects and clouds and the scent of coming rain. Below, the hunters watched. Predators crept through the tall grass. Some no larger than a house cat, others growing fierce and bold. Their claws glinted like polished stone in the sun. Names like Allosaurus and Ceratosaurus would come later. But for now they were shadows. The quiet fear between the ferns. But fear was not the only song. In the gardens of ferns, young dinosaurs played. Chasing, leaping, laughing in silence. Their joy now only remembered in the earth's quiet heart. Mothers built nests with care, curling around their eggs. Nudging shells with gentle snouts, waiting for life to stir inside. The earth breathed in rhythm. Wet season, dry season. Sun and shadow. Heat and hush. The dinosaurs moved with these tides. The sauropods wandered in search of leaves. Plant eaters chewed with careful strength, their teeth shaped by time and trial. Evolution was at work. Not sleepy but slow, deliberate. A potter at the wheel of life, shaping, refining. And then, somewhere in the trees, feathers appeared. Not for flying, not yet, but for warmth, for color, perhaps for beauty. Tufts of fluff clung to small arms. Maybe they rustled in mating dances. Maybe they flared in warning. We cannot be sure. But we know they were there. Fossils pressed them gently into stone like embroidery. And one day, millions of years later, a scientist will lean over that stone in a silent room, see the faint shadows of feathers, and whisper, "How did they last this long?" They will imagine the colors. Crimson reds, golden yellows, shimmering blues that changed with the sun. We may never truly know the truth. But the feathers, they whispered something timeless. That birds are not the children of dinosaurs. They are dinosaurs. One story flowing into another, like rivers merging under moonlight. But that story still waits in the distance. For now, we are in the golden middle of the age of giants. The earth is warm, and wet, and full. From Africa to Asia. From lands that will one day be America, to frozen stretches that will become Antarctica. Dinosaurs roam freely beneath the same starlit sky. They don't know they are everywhere. They don't know they are the architects of the future. They only know life. And so, the earth cradles them softly. The stars shine silently above them, just as they shine for us. The moon pulls at their oceans with ancient gravity. Rain kisses their backs. And they blink. Slowly. Without worry. Thunder rolls across hills with no names. No roads. Only forests and footprints. Wherever they walk, they leave stories behind. Pressed into the mud. Laid gently into riverbeds. Waiting in silence for someone, someday, to listen. They don't know they will be remembered. But the earth remembers. And memory, when held in stone, can last forever. Time stretches onward. New shapes appear. Dinosaurs with armor like castles. Horned beasts crowned with bone. Some with tails like clubs. Others with plates like shields catching the sun. Life doesn't sit still, it experiments. It plays. The earth seems calm, but deep beneath, its crust shifts slowly like a dream turning in sleep. One day, continents will tear apart. Oceans will widen. Climates will change. But not yet. For now, the dinosaurs bloom. Like a living forest made of muscle and bone. They roam valleys, scale hills. Walk the edges of inland seas. They roar. They feed. They dream. And with every footstep, they shape the land. They do not know this is their golden age. But it is. And Earth, in all her memory, has never seen anything quite like it. So let us stay a little longer in this warm breath of time, and simply watch them live. Time moves forward, like a slow river carving poetry into stone. The supercontinent Pangaea has begun to break, stretching like dough in gentle hands. Soon it will become the lands we now call home. Oceans grow, climates shift, and life ever resilient evolves. We enter the Cretaceous period, the final act in this ancient play. Life is more diverse than ever. Species bloom like wildflowers in every corner of the world. Massive plant eaters, with beaks like shovels, graze on the world's newest gift, flowers. Petals and nectar now decorate the earth. Bees hum through ferns and fig trees, writing new stories in their quiet flight. The sky, once ruled by leathery pterosaurs, now belongs to birds. Small, swift, soft-feathered. They sing a song we cannot hear. But they speak the oldest language of all. Flight. Among the new giants walk legends. Triceratops proud and noble, crowned in horns. Ankylosaurus low and shielded, a tank carved by nature. Hadrosaurs peaceful and strange, with duck-like beaks. And then, the one whose name would echo through time. Tyrannosaurus rex. A king. Fierce, majestic, unforgettable. But even the greatest kings do not rule forever. Far across the cosmos, in the vast silence of space, something begins to stir. Just a rock, no grander than 6 miles wide, but old, so very old, it has traveled for ages, drifting quietly between stars. And now, it moves faster than thought, faster than wind, faster than sound. And one day, it arrives. The sky ignites. The rock strikes the earth. Near what we now call Chicxulub, on the Yucatan Peninsula, the earth groans in pain. The sky glows brighter than 1,000 suns. Forests catch fire. Oceans rise in fury. Waves ripple around the world. The air thickens. Dust and soot fill the heavens. The sun disappears. And the world falls into darkness. Weeks pass. Then months. No sunlight. No warmth. The plants begin to die. The air turns cold. And just like that, an era ends. But endings are only beginnings in disguise. From this silence, something else will rise. Something small, something feathered. Something that remembers how to fly. Milky Way. And so, dear dreamer, as the echoes of giants fade into the night, know that their story still moves inside every bird's wings. And perhaps even in you. A traveler of time, cradled gently by the stars. The food chains, delicate as spider silk, began to unravel. The age of the dinosaurs didn't end in a roar, but in a long, slow hush. Some lingered a little longer. Some fled to shelter. Some eggs still hatched. Some herds still wandered under darkened skies. But the balance had shifted. The sun was gone. The plants withered. Without them, the gentle grazers starved. And soon after, those who hunted them fell quiet too. The mighty Tyrannosaurus, silent. The proud Triceratops, gone. The giants, no more. But not everything vanished. In the stillness after the storm, something small endured. Mammals, once tiny and timid, stepped cautiously into the light. And birds, those living echoes of ancient theropods, spread their wings across skies that had once trembled with thunderous roars. They chirped in new forests. They built nests on quiet cliffs where dinosaurs once reigned. And in time, they sang the earth awake again. The bones of the fallen lay buried in silence, fossilized in the dark layers of time. But their story did not end. Rain carved mountains, rivers etched new paths. And eventually, humans arrived, curious, small, full of wonder. They found shapes in the stone. A curve of tooth. An imprint of claw. They guessed. They named. They imagined. And so, the dinosaurs returned no longer in flesh, but in thought. In books and drawings. In museums where children press their noses to glass. In dreams where giants still walk beneath alien stars. Scientists studied the rocks, searching for clues. Pollen sealed in amber. Ash layers whispering of a world-ending flame. The scar of Chicxulub, deep beneath the Gulf of Mexico. Patiently, gently, they pieced the puzzle together, like sewing the torn fabric of time. And they learned, the dinosaurs were not failures, not mistakes. They were one of nature's greatest success stories. For over 160 million years, they thrived in shapes strange and spectacular. That's over 700 times longer than humans have walked the earth. And some never really left. From pigeon to penguin, every bird carries their tail forward. Their bones are light, their hearts race, their wings are ancient arms remade. The raptor's eye still watches from the branches. So the next time you hear a bird sing, remember it is a song that began in the age of dinosaurs. A story of teeth, of feathers, of survival, and change so deep it feels like a dream. It teaches us that life can bloom again. That it can break, and begin anew. Even now, deep beneath the soil, the earth remembers them. It holds their shapes in stone, like pressed flowers in a forgotten book. The past is not gone. It's just sleeping. And perhaps, in the hush of wind or the flutter of wings, you might feel it, the soft heartbeat of a world that once belonged to giants. That story lives on. In a much older earth before cities hummed and roads were drawn, there walked creatures so vast and slow that even time seemed to move around them. The sauropods. Gentle titans, with necks that stretched toward the sun, and tails that whispered along the forest floor. Their feet pressed into the soil like soft drums, each step a rhythm millions of years old. They were the largest animals to ever walk this earth, longer than buses, heavier than herds of elephants. We call them Apatosaurus, Diplodocus, Brachiosaurus. But they needed no names. They were not monsters, not beasts. They were living landscapes, breathing hills that moved with the earth's deep breath. Their necks reached high, plucking leaves like floating giraffes. Some stood like cranes, others swept the forest floor in graceful arcs. Their slowness wasn't laziness, it was thought. Deliberate. Ancient. Their size was their shield. Few predators dared challenge a walking mountain. Yet the world was never without danger. Young ones were always at risk. Theropods watched from the shadows. So the sauropods stayed together, herds drifting like clouds across the land. Mothers guarded their young. Elders led the way through forgotten valleys and across wide riverbeds. And they remembered ancient trails carved into the memory of Earth itself. Trails that led to the same nesting grounds each year, places where they laid their eggs in the warm, shallow sand, and waited for life to begin again. Their eggs were not as big as you'd expect, no larger than a soccer ball. Inside, tiny giants curled like dreams waiting in stone. When they hatched, they were delicate, vulnerable, but born with a gift, the power to grow. Growth was their quiet superpower. Some say they grew faster than any creature alive today. Hundreds of pounds each year, their hunger fed by endless forests of green. And oh, how those forests sang with life. It was a warm world, lush and alive. Conifers rose like living cathedrals, their shadows cast long across the ferny floor. Soft green carpets blanketed the ground. Dragonflies shimmered like glass in golden light. Rivers meandered like silver threads, and ancient clouds watched from above. The sauropods with bellies like barrels and legs like pillars left footprints as large as bathtubs in the soft earth. And some of those prints are still here, etched in stone like echoes, followed carefully by paleontologists, gentle readers of the Earth's diary. In some, you can see the twist of a heel, the slide of a toe, as if the creature had just walked by. And yet, how did they carry such weight? How did hearts pump blood up necks longer than school buses? That mystery still lingers. Some say they had massive hearts. Others believe in valves and lungs like birds, air flowing through hollow bones, keeping those vast bodies cool and light. They were not clumsy. They were clever. Their size was strategy. Their long necks meant less walking. Their hollow bones, a hidden grace. Their herds, protection in motion. They were masterpieces, living architecture built by time. Sauropods first appeared more than 200 million years ago. And for over 100 million years they walked this earth. That's a time so long, it becomes poetry to imagine it. If the age of dinosaurs were a single day, humans would appear only in the final seconds before midnight. And during that day, the sauropods were the breath of morning. They watched the continents shift like puzzles. They saw climates stir and flying creatures rise. Other dinosaurs came and went, but the sauropods remained. Silent, steady, sleeping giants beneath the sun. Now, we find their bones in cliffs, deserts, where ancient rivers once ran. Their skeletons arch in museums, towering over children in awe. Their necks stretch toward ceilings. Their tails curl like ancient question marks. But even the best fossil is only a whisper. We can study the bone, model the muscle, guess at the sound, but we will never walk beside them. Never feel the ground tremble beneath their feet. We can only listen for their story. In the rustle of leaves, the hush of fog on a meadow, the soft brush of something immense in the deep green. And perhaps, that is enough. Because sometimes the best stories are the ones we almost remember. The ones the earth tells us in fragments. One fossil at a time. And maybe, just maybe, when the summer breeze stirs the leaves, you will hear it. The breath of a sauropod dreaming again. Let's drift deeper now, into their quiet world, where afternoons stretch long, and leaves whisper above glimmering rivers. By the middle of the Jurassic, and on into the Cretaceous, sauropods had become quiet architects of their world. Where they walked, forests bent and changed. Where they fed, ecosystems evolved. Picture a herd crossing a vast floodplain. Their feet leave massive prints in the soft mud. Prints that later cradle rainwater or small shelter-seeking creatures. Their tails arc gently behind them. Their necks sway like cranes above the trees. Each one eats hundreds of pounds of plants a day. From cycads to conifers to horsetails. They act like gardeners. Their grazing reshapes the forest. Plants adapt, growing faster, taller, tougher. Some produce more seeds, more spores. Spreading their legacy with each step of the giants. The land itself changes beneath their feet. Just as today's grasslands change under elephants. And all around, smaller lives weave through their shadows. Tiny mammals scurry through ferns. Lizards dash across warm rocks. Insects hum. Birds early, feathered ancestors flit among the branches. The sauropods notice none of them. But they are all connected. When a branch falls, all feel it. When a sauropod dies, the forest holds its breath. Even in death, they are massive. Their bodies become food, shelter, fertilizer. Beetles bore. Fungi bloom. And slowly, bone sinks into mud. Turns to stone. Fossils memory made solid. And millions of years later, we find them. Paleontologists dig gently, lifting the past with brushes and chisels. A vertebra big as a chair. A femur taller than a man. Ribs that arch like cathedral ceilings. And sometimes, whole trails of footprints. A family moving through time. Among the most incredible, Argentinosaurus, a giant from South America. Perhaps over 100 feet long. Nearly 100 tons. As long as a basketball court. heavier than a blue whale. Its bones are rare, scattered. But even the fragments whisper of something colossal. A creature that once ruled the horizon. But not all were giants. Some were small, adapted to island life, dwarfed by scarcity. Others grew even larger in wide plains. Their necks bridges across the land. Evolution shaped them like clay. Malleable, purposeful, beautiful. Brains small, but nervous systems vast. Some may have had secondary nerve clusters to help control their long, swinging tails. Their senses were sharp, eyesight keen, smell sensitive, hearing attuned. They had to be aware of danger, of one another, of change. And change never ceased. Continents drifted. Mountains rose. Oceans shifted. New species evolved. Faster, smaller, sharper. The skies filled with more birds. The forests changed. Quietly. Flowering plants emerged. Not with thunder, but with color. For millions of years, Earth had been green. Now came reds, yellows, purples, whites. With flowers came nectar. With nectar came bees. Pollination became a dance. The world smelled sweeter. It was brighter. Did the sauropods notice? Maybe. Maybe they brushed petals with curious eyes. Maybe they munched a bloom now and then. But the flowers noticed them. They adapted to the footsteps of giants. And yet, all around were threats. The Cretaceous was not a peaceful age. Predators like Giganotosaurus and Carcharodontosaurus roamed the shadows. Huge, swift, deadly. Even the great sauropods were vulnerable. The sick, the young. The forest echoed not just with footsteps, but with tension. And still they endured. For over 100 million years. They walked. When the world warmed, they moved. When it cooled, they stayed. When lands broke into islands, they crossed or stayed behind. Branching like leaves on their family tree. Their legacy is not of speed, nor strength, nor cleverness. It is a story of patience, of quiet rhythm, of being part of the earth. For so long that the land itself remembered their shape.